Okay, very good evening, parents. Good afternoon, actually. Very much welcome to our town hall session. I'm Mr. Chen, the principal. Let's just give us maybe just one more minute, if you don't mind. We're expecting more parents to be joining us as well. So in a minute's time, I will get started, right? Thank you very much. Very good afternoon, parents. Thank you so much for your patience and for joining us this afternoon. I've also just been informed by my colleagues that actually this is the fifth town hall that we've had this year. And it's so fast. I think half a year is going to go by already. We're already into May, towards the tail end of our second term. And I thought it's quite timely for us to brief all parents as well on a few topics today. So you notice that today's town hall, we have set aside 1.5 hours instead of the usual 1 hour. The few topics that we'll be covering today. One, just briefly, I won't be spending so much time on PSLE scoring itself because this is just a very quick recap on how the scoring system has changed since the T-score of our days and many years ago compared to the AL scoring that has already been in place for a few batches. Okay, but what I would like to focus a little bit more attention today is really on secondary one posting because we wanted to alert parents to some of the changes in the landscape, as well as to then cast our eye out to what secondary school landscape will look like, right, in the years ahead. Because you have heard one of the biggest news that came up just last year was the removal of streaming. And to P6 parents, your children this year will be the first batch that will be impacted by this removal of streaming. So I'll just mention a little bit, what does that mean for your children moving into secondary schools next year? Okay, and then the last bit as part of secondary school choice as well is related to DSA. That's when I will pass the time over to my HOD for PE and CCA, Mr. Shah. He'll be briefing everyone on DSA. So I think three main things that we wanted everyone to be aware of by the end of today. Hopefully you will have a better understanding of what, as parents together with the school, how can we support your children in that transition journey from primary school to secondary school. The second one is a better understanding of full subject-based banding. So while full subject-based banding doesn't impact the primary schools directly, but because this is being implemented in all our secondary schools, secondary one onwards, I hope to be able to share some information with parents so that you will know how to go about doing your choices as well. And when your child goes into secondary school, what are some of the things that they can look forward to? Okay, and lastly, of course, information about secondary school choice. So some quick recap regarding PSLE scoring. I won't delve too much in this area, but I think in terms of the intent of PSLE, it has already been debated for some time. We have already shifted away from the T-scores, a very, very fine differentiation of our children by academic merit in that sense, and move towards the broader bands, AL scores. Right? Today, what we know from AL1 all the way until our AL8. And I think we are also very aware of the fact that the PSLE is also here to stay because it is a good checkpoint, right? Good checkpoint at the end of primary school for us to know where our children are so that when they go on to secondary school, the secondary schools are able to work with your children, to be able to walk them through that journey, academic journey, and non-academic areas as well to help to grow your child further, okay? Just also a slide that puts side by side the AL scoring from AL1 all the way to 8, if let's say your children are taking the standard subjects. And for foundation subjects, I'll show you later. But basically, if you look at a child, a very hypothetical situation here, Elena, who has taken 3 standard subjects and 1 foundation science subject, because she got an ALA for her foundation science, that maps to AL6, okay, AL6, and hence if you add up the scores, she gets a PSLE score of 40. The best score that you can have, that any child can have, will be getting AL1 for all the subjects, hence a total score of 4. The range goes to 32, but you'll notice that for 32 points, it is considered as not passing the PSLE because you are required to have at least an AL7 for English as well as math in order to have considered clearing the PSLE. This is how the grades would look like if it is for foundation subjects, right? So foundation level, there are 3 levels. One is ALA, B, and C. In our school, actually most of our students take standard subjects. A very, very vast majority of our students take the standard subjects. From P4 going into P5, we have always tried our hardest to make sure that we offer the children standard subjects. The expectations are high, the curriculum is rigorous, but we believe in it. We also believe in working with the children. So even if, let's say, they are not doing as well when they are at the end of P4 into P5 level, we want to make sure that we can help them assess the standard curriculum. Because when they go into secondary school, the standard curriculum is something that they will be able to access as well. Okay, so, but if we were to map ALA, would map to an equivalent of 6 points, and then B is to 7, and C is to AL8. And over here, you will see what is the raw mark range for foundation subjects. Now, a little bit about higher mother tongue, especially if you and your child are thinking about the possibility of signing up for registering for a SAP school, right? SAP schools are the only schools in Singapore whereby when it comes to secondary posting, they will take into account the higher mother tongue. Okay, but over here, this one is about eligibility criteria. So children be wanting to take higher mother tongue at secondary school side, this is what they will need to be scoring. So an overall PSLE score of 8 or better, or, okay, then over here is also stated, PSLE score between 9 to 40, which is inclusive, and what do they need to attain for their mother tongue language. So it can be in mother tongue language AL1 or 2, but for higher mother tongue language, it's a distinction or merit. And at Admiralty Primary, we do have a lot of children who are being offered higher mother tongue at our P5 as well as P6 levels. And we believe very strongly in it as well. Through our higher mother tongue lessons, we are also able to get our children to be a lot more interested in the language. And hence, when they go on to secondary level, that also puts them in a better position to take up the higher mother tongue language. Okay, and this is for all mother tongue languages, not just for Chinese language. Wanted to clarify. Sorry for that confusion just now. I mentioned something with regard to the SAP school. I will mention that slightly later about in terms of entering SAP schools. What I mentioned earlier here regarding higher mother tongue language, it has got nothing to do with SAP schools. It's got to do with whether you wish to take up, a child wish to take up higher mother tongue language when they go on to secondary school. So how does the Set 1 posting system work? Our teachers have been working with your children, I think ever since the start of the year, you may be aware, through our enhanced ECG program to make sure that when our children do their 6 choices in selecting their secondary schools, they are very purposeful about it. They have really done their own research, gone to the school's websites, secondary schools' websites to find out more about the secondary schools. When it comes to posting itself, the first order of posting is via academic merit. That means the PSLE score, as well as the choice order of schools that comes into play. What happens is that if let's say there are same PSLE score for 2 children who are vying for the last remaining place in the school, in other words, tiebreakers need to come in. So this tiebreakers will follow this particular order. First and foremost is citizenship. So our Singapore citizens will be given the priority over PRs, followed by choice order of schools. And that's why choice order of schools today is really very important. Compared to in the past under the T-score, it may not be as important as what it is today. And I think the encouragement to all parents as well as children is to ensure that we use up all 6 choices wisely. So think about it very wisely. And the last tiebreaker is on computerized balloting. So just to give you a very simplified example, what it looks like when it comes to using the tiebreakers in the new Set 1 posting system. So assuming we have 5 students, if you can see on the screen, 5 students that are vying for the last places in the schools of their choice. So you'll see that Jane has got 16 points, excuse me, compared to Brian all the way down to Rina. Brian to Rina have got 20 points, so we have 4 children at the same number of points. So firstly, Jane will be posted in to the school of her choice first. She'll be posted into a school choice of A, if let's say all these children are all vying for a place in school A. Because Brian, Mary, Ellen, and Rina, the 4 of them have got the same score 20, and Jane has already taken that last available place in school A, the remaining 4 children will have then to vie for the next available place in the next choice, which is school B. Okay, if you see Brian has got school B as first choice, Mary has got school B as second choice, okay, same for Ellen, same for Rina. Now, so that's when the tiebreakers come in. You'll see that immediately Brian and Mary are Singapore citizens. That's when they will have priority to enter school B. But if we were to compare, what happens is that Ellen and Rina will then be tie broken because they are permanent residents. So in this situation, the Brian and Mary being Singapore citizens, that is the first order of tie breaking, if you recall, citizenship, right? They will have priority to enter school B. Then for those who are not, they are tie broken out of it, they will be considered for the next choice. So how do we decide between Brian and Mary? That's when the second tiebreaker comes in, choice order of school. If you recall, Brian put school B as first choice, but Mary put school B as second choice. So that's why Brian will enter school B first. Okay, and because Brian has taken up the last place in school B, Mary will then be posted to school C. Okay, and same. So for Ellen and Rina, they have both ranked school D as their third choice. And again, because 20 points each, at the same time, both are permanent residents. At the same time, choice order of school is exactly the same. So third choice, so the last tiebreaker that comes into picture is the computerized balloting. And of course, when it comes to computerized balloting, determined by what happens at HQ site when it comes to the balloting. In this case, Ellen is the one who's posted to school D. This is just a very simplified kind of example that I'm giving you, okay? Because of course, there are many other kinds of examples. And should you have any queries with regard to that, feel free to also write into us, feel free to check in our form teachers as well. We can guide you through the process. Okay, so this was what I mentioned earlier. Apologies for the confusion earlier. Now I'll be talking about SAP schools. So our SAP schools. For children who are actually quite certain that they wish to sign up for a SAP school, these are the conditions. All right. Students who have obtained a distinction, merit, or pass for higher Chinese language at a PSLE and an overall PSLE score of 14 or better, they'll receive a posting advantage when they apply to SAP schools. So let me just use an example here. Over here, you see 6 students applying. And this is what happens. The first child, because the child has got a better PSLE score, will be posted first, even though the child does not take HCL. Okay, the child qualifies because he did 14 points or better. So it can go to a SAP school. At the same time, the child will then be able to take HCL at this SAP school, SAP secondary school. And that offer is being given to the child by virtue of the fact that the child has actually scored 14 or better. If you recall, that was what we mentioned. He will qualify for doing higher mother tongue language at a SAP school. If we were to take a look at the next few students, whereby they all scored 8 points, that's when some form of tiebreaker will need to take place. So what happens is that students' HCL results are denoted as D for distinction, M for merit, P for pass. So students who have obtained a distinction, okay, they will at distinction, merit, pass in HCL, as well as a score of 14 or better, they are eligible for posting. And in this case, to tie break, what happens is that the child with a distinction score will be the first one to actually enter the school, the SAP school of the choice. All right, followed by the merit, followed by the pass, and then followed by the child who takes no HCR. Okay, and all these tiebreakers for SAP schools take place using the HCL score before the different tiebreakers at the posting system come in. All right, just to highlight again, this is applicable only to application to SAP schools, not the other secondary schools. All right, so now just to highlight to parents, what is this full subject-based banding that's happening at a secondary school landscape? The whole aim of having a full SPB being implemented in the secondary schools is to make sure that one, I think in terms of the diversity of the classes that our children are going into. We want our children to be interacting with different friends of different backgrounds, strengths, abilities, and talents. In the past, you will know it goes by express, normal academic, normal technical stream, right? There have been also reports in the past before of children feeling an issue with self-esteem, whether there is stigmatization because of the streams that they're entering. But we have seen the benefits of having diverse classes. And so children also will be able to enter classes, enter schools based on their talents. They pursue it based on their own talents as well and their own strengths. Doesn't matter whether you are very strong in English versus mother tongue versus math, for example. I think the whole idea is over here, you are going to a secondary school, you are pursuing the academic subject at your own strength and comfort level. And that really helps the children to grow further. Okay, of course, we are looking at having growth mindset. We know that children at just after P6 go into secondary school, they're really still very young. I think they require a lot more time to be able to develop their motivation and also develop their strengths and better understanding of the different subjects that they may be stronger in. Okay. Now, so just a quick, just to highlight what is a timeline like. Back in 2020, that was when the full subject-based banding pilot was commenced in 28 secondary schools. So during then, it was only 28 secondary schools that had full subject-based banding. But because of the good feedback that has come in, this pilot has already been expanded further. All right, in 2022, 2023, around 90 schools have implemented. And so from 2024 onwards, all secondary schools will be implementing full subject-based banding. This has also coincided with the fact that we have removed the streams. Express, NA, NT will be removed for this cohort of P6s, meaning next year's cohort of secondary 1 students. When the students go into the secondary school for the first time, as Sec 1 students, they will be grouped in mixed form classes in their secondary 1 level. Okay, this also has an implication on our certificate that we get at the end of the day, right? So after that 4 or 5 years, the children will not be getting an N or O-level cert anymore. What they can look forward to is something called a Singapore Cambridge Secondary Education Certificate, SEC. They are calling it a SEC in future. Okay. Okay. So just something for all parents is a recap. Just to take note, what happens immediately after PSLE, at the end of the year, that is when your choices will start, 6 choices, and based on the choices and based on the posting, the entry to the secondary school will be via posting groups 1, 2, and 3. I'll mention a little bit more about these 3 posting groups. In the secondary school, that's when the children will get to enjoy and experience full SPB. Mixed form classes, the curriculum is also mixed in the sense that they will be getting and doing the subjects based on G1, G2, or G3. All right. To match it a little bit, G1 is somewhat matched to the NT curriculum of the past for that subject only. G2 to NA, and then G3 to Express. So in a sense, you think about G1 to G3 is in that order of rigor of the academic curriculum. But of course, the important thing to take note here is that unlike in the past, if the child goes in under the NA stream, right, everything that the child will be taking, all the subjects will be NA subjects. But now it can be different. They can be taking some subjects at G2, some subjects possibly even at G3. I'll mention that a little bit in a while. end of secondary level from 2027 onwards. So if you think about it, next year 2024, just nice by the time it comes to 2027, it will be this same batch of students who have made all the way to secondary 4, and that's when they'll be sitting for the SEC examination. So this is some details with regard to the posting groups 1, 2, and 3. Just to share that the posting groups 1, 2, and 3 is really used just for the purpose of posting our children to secondary schools. Beyond that, the moment that the children go into secondary schools, the idea of posting groups 1, 2, and 3 will no longer be there. All right, because we have already removed NT, NA express streams from next year onwards. So if you do a mapping, you will notice that if PSLE score is between 4 to 20, the child will fall within posting group 1, and then the subjects, posting group 3, and then the subjects that they'll be taking at the secondary level, most of the subjects will be at the G3 level. Okay, if not most, it will be all. I'll explain in a little while why is it that it's most, because there is a subject that children can be given a choice. Now, so for 21 and 22 points for PSLE score, in the past, it's what we call the NA Express option band. Now it's posting group 2 or 3. So the subject level that the students will be doing when they're in secondary school is G2 or G3. Right? If we run down the list all the way to the last box, last row here, students who are getting between 26 to 30 points, and provided that the child gets AL7 in English and math, they'll be in posting group 1, and the subject level for both subjects will be G1. So in terms of that match between what we had in the past and posting group moving forward, is that you can think of it that the posting group is somewhat matched to the NT kind of posting in the past, posting group 2 to NA, and then posting group 3 to Express. Okay, just to give you all an idea of how the matching goes. But like what I mentioned, wanted to assure our parents, moving forward, streams are all removed. So the idea here that the ministry is trying to do is the posting groups are really just for the idea of matching to the secondary school through the posting groups. Beyond that, the moment they are in secondary school, there's no more mention of the stream. Everything will be based on the subjects, right? All these subjects that you'll be doing at the secondary level. So I think this is just a diagram to show parents, right, how your mixed form classes will look like. It's going to be very different compared to what we have today, where students in the express stream, NA stream, NT stream is very mono in terms of the classes, right? I think it is the children go through similar experiences throughout the entire year. They don't get the ability and the chance to actually mix with one another, find out from each other the talents, and learn from one another in terms of the abilities that their friends have. And with full SPB, it's mixed form classes. Children with different abilities being mixed together, and they really can learn from one another. There will be 6 subjects that the children in the mixed form classes will get to take together, even when it comes to subject-based banding, where you're taking G1, G2, and G3 in the different subjects. These are the ones without that kind of level. So art, D&T, food and consumer education, CCE, music, and PE. That's when in the mixed form class, the children will be taking these subjects together intact. And that also gives them, at least six subjects worth for the children to be interacting with one another, for them to form those kind of bonds as well as relationships. Okay, so this was what I was talking about just now. Earlier, if you recall, I mentioned that if the child gets AL 4 to 20, they will go into the secondary schools through posting group 3. So most of the subjects will be at the G3 level. For children who are actually going in through PG1 and posting group 1 and posting group 2, they can actually take different subjects at a more demanding level. And what it depends on their performance during the PSLE for the subject. So for example, if the child is getting AL5 or better, then they have the option to take G3 or G2. So G3, if you recall, in the past, it's mapped to our express curriculum. G2 at the NA curriculum. So you can imagine that even though if the child may be going in to the school through posting group 2 or possibly even posting group 2 or posting group 1, the subjects that they are taking can be of a higher level or more rigorous level, right? Similarly, over here, if the child is taking foundation subject at PSLE, scored an ALA, because the ALA is mapped to AL6, right? They have an option to take the secondary 1 subject at G2, not necessarily just at a G1 level, right? They can take a higher order one, which is at G2. Okay, what about offering subjects at a less demanding level at the start of Set 1? Now, I'm giving you here an example. Students who offered English language, math, or science at foundation level at PSLE, they are otherwise eligible to take most of their subjects at G3, right? So at a higher level, okay? But in consultation of the school, they may choose to take these subjects at a less demanding level. So let me just repeat that. Basically, if let's say the child is taking math at a foundation level, all right, at PSLE, but because of the score of the child between 4 to 20 points, total 4 to 20 points, actually you will qualify for the school under posting group 3. So most of the subjects will be G3, but maybe the child may be feeling not very confident in math because I was doing foundation math at the primary school. In discussion with the secondary school, you can choose to do the subject at the G2 level rather than the G3 level. So idea here is really looking at the student and the well-being of the students to have that discussion to see what is a better fit for the child. Students also have the option to offer mother tongue languages at a less demanding level. So here is another concrete example. Child scored 20 points or better, so actually can qualify for a school via posting group 3. Right? In the past, posting group 3, we'll talk about it as being somewhat like the express stream. But because the child scored AL7 to 8 for mother tongue is really one of those subjects that a child is really quite weak in, right, at this point in time. So I think the comfort level is the child has the option to take mother tongue at a less demanding level, right, either G1 or G2, rather than forcing the child to take it at G3. Okay, so this is just an example for parents thinking about, let's say you are aware that your child is very stressed out by mother tongue language, for example, right? What are some of your options at the secondary school side? Okay, so I think in summary, the whole idea about subject-based banding is this. Going into secondary 1, I think students are given that kind of flexibility to adjust their subject levels across the entire secondary school journey. Whether a child is doing G1, G2, or G3 for a particular subject, they also realize that if they were to be motivated coming into secondary school, spend more time and effort trying to improve and trying to work on the areas where maybe areas for growth for themselves, they can actually make improvements. And in discussion with the school, you can actually be offered a higher demand kind of subject. So from G1 to G2 in the following year, G2 to G3, it's possible. All right. So this is what I just mentioned. I think students may offer subjects at a more demanding level if they meet the criteria of the school and in discussion with the school. Similarly, students who are not coping very well in the secondary school, they may look at the possibility of putting the subjects at a less demanding level. Okay. All right. And I think the whole idea here is that the secondary schools will definitely want to have conversations with the students as well as the parents about the learning needs of your child, learning progress, so that we look at it as being a journey. It's not just that, at the start point at secondary 1, these are the levels that your child is taking, and that's it. He or she is stuck for it for the next 4 to 5 years. It doesn't work like that. I think moving forward with full subject-based banding, things are even more fluid, it's even more flexible. Of course, at the end of the day, I think we need to have those conversations with our children to make sure they put in the hard work as well and they apply themselves well. Now, let me just mention some things about secondary school choice then. Okay, there are a couple of QR codes here for you to scan to take a look. The School Finder tool in particular, I would like to encourage all parents to scan this, take some time to look through. you will see very important and useful information on the school finder too. The different schools are all there, secondary schools are all there. And if you were to look for the secondary schools, you can also use the different filters inside to try and find out information about the school, possibly things like, for example, what are the AL scores for the school in the past few years, as well as the different niche areas that the school has. And try and think about the match. Is this going to be a school that will fit your child well? Will your child fit the school well when he or she goes to the school? So this probably won't be new to all parents. When we look at the schools in terms of their scores, in the past, you won't see posting group 3, 2, and 1. It will actually be indicated as being the NA stream, the NT stream, the express stream. But moving forward, because the language is also being changed, the way that we are posting the children is being changed to posting groups 3, 2, 1. You will see the cutoff scores here. The first score here that you see, the score that is lower, right? This actually means that it's a better score, all right? What it refers to is this is the PSLE score of the first student that is posted into the school via the posting group. So if I look at this school, for example, that means the student that went in first, the highest score, the best score that he or she had was 15 points, AL 15. And this is the cutoff for the school for posting group 3, 20 points. If you were to use this as information, because this can change year on year. So for this year's posting groups 3, 2, 1 for the different schools, we don't know yet because the PSLE has not been taken, the results are not yet out, and we have not posted in the students. But usually when we look at the cutoff points based on previous years, that will give you a very good idea about how easy or how difficult it might be to go into the school of the choice based on your child's scores. Okay, and this is a case for a SAP school. For a SAP school, you can see that over here, the first child that went in, the highest with the best PSLE score was 5 points, and the child got a distinction in the high Chinese language. And for the last child that went into the school, 12 points, as well as a pass in the high Chinese language. I think these PSLE score ranges are definitely useful. You know, when you do that 6 choices together with your child, you all have those discussions. The PSLE score ranges are definitely something that you all want to refer to. Do make use of them wisely, especially the school finder going there to take a look at the schools. Your child may have already engaged you to think a little bit about some of the schools that they are very interested in. And take a look at it, you know, based on how the child has been performing now. Are these schools that actually match in terms of PSLE score range, in terms of other factors like the school's programs, CCA, the culture, the ethos. So these are things that I hope to encourage all parents to have a conversation with your child on. So a few reminders, encouragement to parents. Firstly, just now you heard me to talk about tiebreakers as well. So the school choice matters, right? Use all 6 options wisely. Don't leave any options blank. Okay, because with all 6 options, and you try and match them based on the PSLE score of your child, match them against the cutoff points for previous years of the schools, that really increases the chances of your child being posted into a school of choice. Okay, so I think my message here is really don't leave it to chance. All right. So the next box here you see is about taking reference from schools' PSLE score ranges, because that will give you an idea how to select the choices of the school. You can consider at least 2 to 3 schools where your child's PSLE score is better than the school's cutoff point. Right? I think you should definitely do that, because if you don't consider that, of course, the concern is that if your child was not able to enter this school of his or her choice in the past because of the cutoff point, the worry is that your child will keep rolling off the first choice, second choice, third choice, and all the way until 6 choices. If there's no good match for your school, for your child, then your child is at risk of being posted based on your address and postal code. Okay, so some of the things that I mentioned just now, if you are able to have these conversations with your child, shortlist them. At the same time, I think on this part about ranking your child's preferred options, the school has been doing this very intentionally. I think P6 parents, you may have been wondering, I think in the past few months, your child has been receiving a lot of the Form SG, asking your children to submit their choice and their preferences. This is actually coming from a school, not from the ministry. I wanted to clarify that. It's coming from the school because we want to help your child to submit their options to us so that as a school, the teachers have sight of what your child has chosen so that we can also advise your child accordingly. What our teachers will do is they will look at the academic performance of your child and at the same time have those conversations with them. Do we think that this is a good match? Do we think that you are being too ambitious to the extent that if all your 6 choices, you don't have any choice that can allow you to qualify, are you at risk of being posting out of these schools? Excuse me. Okay, so some of the other tips that we have mentioned just now already, right? Do have these conversations with them about their strengths, what are some of their expectations. Some timeline to look forward to, I think October, in preparation for the Set 1 posting exercise, more information will be put on School Finder. There will be a reminder to all parents from the ministry again to check. Release of PSLE results, that's when it usually takes place sometime in November. And after that, that's when your online submission for Set 1 school choices will take place. And the posting results will come in much later in the year, in December. Wanted to give everyone some data so that you have an idea that, using past 3 years trend, also the kind of information that our school has been giving to your child, the kind of support that my form teachers have been giving to your children. Students being posted to first choice schools, okay, first choice from 2020 to 2022, actually we have had a vast increase in numbers. Just last year, 73% of our students are able to get into their first choice schools. And we factor in the first 3 choices, that is a very good 93%. But of course, our worry here is that there is still 6 to 7% of our students who are not getting into their first 3 choice of schools. And take note that this slide that I'm showing you has already taken away children who have gotten into the school of their choice by DSA. Okay. This was what I mentioned just now. What happens if your child doesn't get into any of these 6 choices? Then you will be posted, the child will be posted to any school based on availability, so vacancy, as well as postal sector, so postal code. Let's not let it come to this stage because I think we want to make use of the 6 choices very wisely. At least with the 6 choices, you have some control. All right. 2020, we had 6 cases of such things happening. In 2022, it dropped a lot until 2 cases only. I wanted to give you an example of what happened with some of these cases, just to give you an example. So example of a case, a child with an AL score of 24. What happened was that the child actually placed the first 2 choices as 23 points. Third choice onwards, they started to put 24. Now, problem is that first 2 choices were already out of range. So in a sense, the child was a little bit unrealistic to the sense that probably they were hoping that, this year things will be better. So probably easier to get into the school. Hopefully, instead of 23 points, this year will be 24 and I will be able to get in. But let's not forget, 24 points, even if it does drop to 24 points, there's no guarantee that there's no tie breaking, right? Because 24 points is the last student that managed to get into the school. If there was any vying for places, that means more students applying as compared to number of places, some kind of tiebreaker will have taken place. Then next 4 choices, while it is within range, so to speak, but it may already have been taken up, some kind of tie-breaking could have already also taken place. So in the end, all the 6 choices didn't quite work out for the child, and then the child was posted out of sector. Okay. Okay, this last slide, before I hand the time over to Mr. Sharil, my HOD for PE, is just to remind parents about the option of DSA secondary. Okay, take note, there is no change at all to the application and selection process. This shows you a timeline. Wanted all parents to consider this, really consider it seriously. We have been having conversations with our children. In our school, I think we do believe that the DSA should be a route that our children consider very wisely, right? But I wanted to also assure parents there is nothing wrong if after discussion with your child, looking at your child's inclinations, decided that DSA route is not for the child, that's also perfectly fine. The PSLE route is, after all, the main route for most students in Singapore. Okay, but of course, in DSA, because we have been so deliberate in helping our children understand what DSA is all about, we do want our children to think about it seriously. Okay, I'll hand the time over to Mr. Shah, who will bring you through the DSA secondary process.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chen. Let me share screen first. While I'm sharing screen, we also noticed that some of you actually posted questions. We will address these questions at the end of the session. Okay. Let me present. Okay. I think the focus of my talk now will be on DSA, how we actually can use DSA to help our children to enter the school of their choice. I think Mr. Chen already mentioned that there is actually two routes. One of it is DSA, and how we can actually be aware of how we can actually make DSA as an option to enter the school of our choice. And understanding that after SBB, order of choice, anything that changes, there is no implication to how DSA is being conducted or being selected. So the agenda for my talk will be, let me just run through a bit about our school narrative or movement for DSA for all. Then just give me a chance to share a bit about our DSA outcomes from 2020 to 2022, a bit of a success story, then the support that's been given to your child from the school, and how we hope that we can strengthen partnership with parents, some process and guidelines so that we're all aware. Okay. Next, I think DSA allows, direct school admission allows students to enter secondary school of their choice based on talents and achievements beyond academic results. Talents and achievements referring to things like in sports, in arts, leadership, and even specific academic areas. All secondary schools are actually offering DSA. Sorry, let me see. And hence we want DSA to be accessible to every student, and that they are not fixated only on academic, but also to develop their interests and talents. This goes back to our school movement for DSA for all. If I can bring your attention here, all secondary schools are offering DSA. If you have read the news today, 142 secondary schools are on board, and every schools are offering DSA. And we started this move actually in 2021. And understanding that only some, actually, but right, there are some schools that only accept students via DSA, such as sports school, SOTA, SST, and even NUS High. Then we also understanding that every school is offering DSA, and every of our child should consider DSA as an option. We also wanted to be able to make better strategic choices to enter the school of their choice, be it via DSA or PSLE. Ultimately, decision making is determined by students and parents, and we want you to be able to make a sound decision. Think carefully. PSLE will become less high stake if we're able to make the right decision. Now, what can students apply for direct school admission? Here are the wide range of talents: sports and games, visual, literary and performing arts, debate, public speaking, science, mathematics and engineering, languages and humanities, uniform groups, leaderships. Leadership can refer to prefects, CCA leaders, peer support leaders, and even subject leaders. This is something which I want to highlight. So if your child is successful and admitted to a secondary school through DSA, they are not allowed to submit school choices during the S1 posting process in November, or to even transfer to another school. The one thing that we want to debunk here is, I think a lot of students are telling us that they do not want to be stuck to a CCA. Let me just address a few things here. We do not want kids to see this as a limiting factor that prevent them to try DSA as an option. We want to teach them about the value of commitment, holding up to the value system. a child that says that they do not want to be stuck to a CCA, we want them to understand that they might not always get the choice that they actually want to. We want them to be prepared and be willing to develop, accept the choice, and if one door closed, another door will open. And we do not want them to be so fixated on that particular door that they're not moving forward. So again, DSA, CCA will give them the foundation, will give them the edge if they wish to pursue it further. The key thing we've always been asking our young admirals, what are the transferable skills that they can use to get them to the CCA of their choice in secondary? This I think just today, I just had this conversation with a secondary school teacher. So I asked him about CCA in secondary. I think all of us are aware that CCA is compulsory in secondary, and it's important to make the right choice to enter the CCA that they are keen and they are interested to develop their talents or strength even further, because ultimately being in the right CCA will give them a good chance to use the point system to enter to JC, Poly, or even ITE. Next, let me just share this article with all of you. This article was actually in our Straits Times in November late last year. What is this article all about? So it mentioned here that in 2022, there were 31,800 applications from 12,200 pupils with 3,900 receiving offers. Here, it was mentioned that what MOE is trying to do is to encourage schools to offer direct school admissions across the educational landscape, and for primary school to encourage parents to consider it. So this is what Admiralty has been trying to do since 2021. We've been very intentional to help our kids to make an informed choice. And you also can see, based on what Mr. Chen shared just now, our numbers are on a positive rise. And you can see that 31,800 in 2022, the number went up quite a bit for past 2 years. Again, it's aligned to what Admiralty is trying to do, is actually aligned to what MOE is preaching. Next, understanding that more pupils are actually considering DSA, let us just share a bit about our DSA results. You can see here from our past results, 2020 to 2022, we can see an increasing number. So I think it's very encouraging for us to be to take in or to embrace that our efforts not only to be deliberate to raise awareness, to guide our students, to also consider DSA as an option. At the same time, as a school, we are also improving, finding ways to relook at how we actually provide an overall experience and exposure for our students, so that they are in a better state for their future. So I think it's a positive sign, and we hope for this number to even go even higher. Next, if I can touch on 2022, it's encouraging to share that out of 33 that actually managed to go via DSA, 4 of them entered the schools that only accept students via DSA, which are SOTA and NUS High. Then it is also nice to learn that 18 of them might not have entered the school if they had just relied on their PSLE results alone. I will elaborate more about this later on. Understanding this, what has been our messaging to our young admirals? We have always been telling them from P1 all the way to P6 to use their strength to their advantage. We have always been asking them to consider transferable skills in their DSA application. Things that, for example, if they are in football in Admiralty and they do not wish to pursue football in future, but what has football taught them that they can use to transfer and apply to a CCA of their choice in secondary school? Then we have always been drilling in our students to continue to work hard, be a hardworking taughty, and to always want to improve. So it's in reference to our performance, character, and growth mindset. Now, let me just share a success story. This is Alfred. I actually spoken to him. He has given his permission to show his picture and to share his story. He is an example of a successful DSA student from us last year. the cutoff point to enter Evergreen Secondary School express stream back then was 15 points. He was our PE leader. He was in our sports club. He represented ADP. He represented us for the National School Games for badminton. And then using that, he applied for DSA to Evergreen Secondary. And because he wanted to go to Evergreen Secondary so much that he actually applied via 2 talent areas, which are badminton and leadership. He cleared the interview and he was being offered leadership DSA. He didn't get in via badminton. Then once he was being offered, when the results came, his PSLE score was actually 17. And he managed to enter Evergreen. So he managed to enter Evergreen still with 17 and being given the express stream. At this present moment, he is the class chairperson. He is also in the volleyball CCA. Spoken to him again, like I said this morning, he is thriving, he is flourishing, he is blossoming into an effective leader. He's enjoying his role as the class chairperson. He embraces the challenges. And I think he actually because badminton and volleyball are actually net barrier games, so he kind of apply what he actually learned in badminton, understanding the skills needed for volleyball, and he managed to clear and join the volleyball CCA group. Okay, I think that is just one example. But okay, now let me just share a bit about our very deliberate approach to helping our kids in Admiralty. We have been sharing with you information via Parent Gateway. Things already up in our school website, which I'm not going to repeat. So this time around, give me the chance to share with you a bit of certain changes that we have put in place this year to better help our kids. Let me just bring you to this enhanced ECG curriculum. We are refining it even further. I think the purpose of this particular curriculum is more to guide our students to discover their strength and to explore opportunities. We actually want them to understand the importance of making informed decisions. How do we make it more intentional and relatable to them? It goes back at P2. From P1 to P2, they have to make a CCA choice. So then we do not leave it to chance. We also continue that learning to get them to reflect on their choice and the implication of their choice. Then from there, we also very intentional in hoping to help them to make their secondary school choices. Next thing is, now at P6, what is it that we want them, focusing on P6, we want our young admirals to be confident of their secondary school choices. So how? We have structured FTGP lesson, which is the enhanced ECG lesson. In this particular lesson, we'll be talking to them very explicitly, talking to them about the different pathways, better understand the choices. We will also arrange for secondary school talks and also have lessons that focus on preparing themselves for interviews. We also have our ECG Google Classroom. This is where we've been having online conversations. We've been sharing publicity talks. We've been sharing open houses, e-open houses, answering questions, allowing kids to even interact and connect among themselves via our Google Classroom. In the Google Classroom, there's also an individual portfolio given to each and every student. So what they need to do is what they have been doing, and what we hope they have been doing is to make their thinking visible to them, to be able to see the clear thinking pattern that they are having, to understand their options, looking into the school finder, asking themselves what are the cutoff points, what are the schools looking out for, why they are choosing that particular school, which option they should be putting that particular schools within their 6 choices. So all that ought to be done in their individual portfolio. Now, this is something which is new, which is the submission of their 6 choices. Okay, let me talk a bit about this submission of 6 choices. Okay, I think this is an initiative by the school to better, it's an internal process to better for us as teachers or even as a school to better understand our student choices and their thinking pattern in order for us to be able to provide congruent feedback and guidance. So I know this created a bit of a confusion among parents. I've met some of you to explain our intention. I do appreciate your support after understanding why we are doing what we are doing. Here, let me just share with you. We don't take in data for the sake of taking data. So what have we learned from the data that we've received? So first and foremost, many thanks. We actually received 148 submissions when we asked for these 6 choices. So with this 148 data, we have 100 of our 10s at this present moment as a school. We are kind of assured that 110 of our students are actually considering DSA as an option. So there's a good sign that our students believe that they have gifts, they have talents that they can use to put them in a good state or to enter the school of their choice. Now, what have we also learned through this data is that some of our students are indicating DSA for all 6 choices. So I'll take this chance to correct. So DSA is only 3 choice. All right. Next, DSA, you also have students who actually indicated DSA for their 4th to 6th choice. I think we've been encouraging them to think about preferably first 3 choices, but so that we are asking them to think about entering to the school whereby maybe with PSLE alone might not be able to enter to that particular school. But if they have a very good reason as to why is the 6th choice, because it's the safer school and they really want to think about it, then as long as they're able to articulate and explain and accept that particular choice of theirs, then we are fine with it. Next, we also learn that the order of choice not strategic at this present moment. We want all parents to hear their order of choice not strategic. I think if you refer to what Mr. Chen shared about how they should be ordering their choices, so this is something that we actually need to take in and to further work with the students. Next, after learning about the data, what will we be doing next? We will, as a school, the teachers, the P6 teachers, the year heads, the CCA teachers, we will be having conversation. We have already started having conversation with our students to advise them and offer suggestion to help them to refine and be sharper with their choices. We are not telling them to be doing certain things, but more so of having conversation to get them to start to think deeper, getting them to start to ask themselves of their own choices, getting them to be able to embrace the trade-off of the amount of time, effort needed for them to be able to do well. Then we will not stop here. As we continue to do this, please don't be alarmed. We will also be requiring our students to submit their 6 choices again by the end of term 2, week 10, in few weeks' time. Then another submission after prelim results. The reason why we are doing this is because at the end of term 2, week 10, which is after their weighted assessment this mid-year, along with the DSA, by the time comes, we also want them to for us to better understand how many of them are actually going for the DSA options. So that is one checkpoint that we hope to give us a bit more clarity as to the advices that were given. Did our students listen to them and make the right changes, or make the changes on their own, or having conversation in consultation with parents? After prelim, what we're hoping for is after prelim is more or less by then DSA outcomes already been out. Then they also look at their own prelim results. By then, our focus is how strategic are they with their 6 choices. Next, understanding all this, the kind of support that the school is offering now, what we hope parents can also join us and partner us to help our kids to make an informed choice would be encourage your children to apply for DSA. And it's not to force them, but to encourage them, and not to believe that the only way to enter a secondary school is only via PSLE score. DSA does not mean that academics is not important. We are not saying that all in for interest, talents, passion. Academics is secondary. No, it is not that it's not that, but they still need to study just as hard for PSLE. If they are successful with DSA, then you'll be less stressed on them. I think I like to reiterate here, we always want every young admirals to study hard. We believe in good brain, good thinking. What we want them to think about or be aware of, if they can go to a school with maybe a better points or point score range, using their interests and talents, why not? Why not consider DSA as an option? I think by doing that, that's signaling that we are telling our kids will be a more holistic approach, more embracing to our children. Good in studies, go ahead. But if you're good in your games, you are a good leader, you have a certain inclination towards a certain projects or sports, anything, they can also choose DSA as an option. Ultimately, it must be a school that's meant for you. Then, parents, affirm your child that his or her interest needs to be committed and cultivated. It is about that connection with their own inner self. And it's not always about being the best or talented. Make their talents, their strength, their uniqueness to their advantage. I think we have been hearing this about kids saying that they have no talent or they wish to pursue something which is different in secondary school. I think we got to be real. We got to ask ourselves, interest is not fixed. They might change. So what are the parts that are invariant? We have actually spent time, many years with our kids, getting them to explore or discover themselves through PAL, through CCA, through different school programs. If they wish to pursue them in secondary school, they might have an edge over others. If they want to change, they need to ask themselves, what skills and values have they learned that will put them in a good position to be successful. They also need to ask themselves, what are the schools looking out for? Now, please, we encourage you, have conversation, continue to have conversation with them to better understand. There's no harm to committing to a CCA early. Having one CCA should not limit our children. Opportunities will be available for them to explore more at their own time. Let me just use an example here. This was what mentioned just now. This is the new posting group with the new the PSA scoring. Let me just ask, because these are certain questions that parents tend to ask. What is the cutoff point to enter secondary school via DSA? So I'm just going to use one example, which is Riverside Secondary. This was taken from School Finder today, updated score. So you see G3, 7 to 15. 15 is the cutoff point, G2, 21, 23, and G1 is 25, 28. So here is the what the PSLE score, then your posting group that you are eligible for. Now, what if a child applies to Riverside Secondary via DSA and is offered a place? Offer is accepted. Once result is out, your child scores 18 for PSLE. Which group will she be posted to? I just pause for a while to think about it. If you look at here, to enter G3, you need a score, the cutoff point actually 15, but your child scores 18. DSA accepted. Which group? Okay, the answer is actually group G3. So the child will be offered G3. The reason is because G3, if we look at eligibility, PSLE score of 4:20 is eligible to go for G3. So since your child scores 18, which is within this score, eligible for G3. So even though the cutoff point, you don't meet the cutoff point of 15, you will be offered G3. Now, the key question we always want to ask our children will be, they also need to understand their own academic standing. Then they need to be able to embraced if they need to put in the extra time and effort to catch up and to work smart. Now, just a quick one to show you about DSA process and guidelines. I think you have seen this just now. I just like to highlight that May, you need to apply for DSA. It already started today. June to September will be the selection trials, interviews, the auditions. Somewhere by end September, that's where you will get the DSA offers. Just to alert parents, the DSA offers sometimes will not come to us. It will go direct to you. So in the event there's any question, you also can get back to us or go direct back to the school that actually offer the DSA, the DSA lah. Can? In October, you need to, once you're given an offer, you need to go into the portal to exercise the school preference. That will be happening in October. Then in November, that's where the allocation results will be out. Okay, this one is just today, taken from today. Came out Straits Times today about the starting of DSA starting today. So it will start from today 11 a.m. all the way to 23 p.m. on 31st of May. 31st of May is actually our June school week, school holiday. So this is the best time for you to encourage your child who has doubts and questions to come back to the teachers to have conversations. Then parents, just to let you all know, you can submit the DSA application via the DSA portal. This is a centralized online system, and you need to use SingPass of one parent to do so. Again, you can indicate up to 3 choices, maximum of 2 choices for the same school for 2 talent areas, like what Alfred did, an example I gave just now. Here, some parents were asking, what if I send them for certain academies outside of school? Can I indicate so that you will strengthen or give more case for your child to be selected for interview? You may, in this particular portal, you may indicate non-school based award activities. This is optional. Anything that is school based, it will already be captured in our school cockpit. Next, for those of you who are having difficulty, no SingPass, no learning device, can be anything that you are facing challenges with. If you need to seek the school's help to submit on your behalf, please come to us. You need to complete a proxy form. It's up in the school website. It's up in the MOE DSA website. Come down to Admiralty yourself with the needed documents, and we'll help you to process. Just come and look for me. With that, I end the sharing for DSA. Maybe if you look at the question and answers now, I'll pass the time to Mr. Chen first.
Thank you, Mr. Shah. Okay, parents, I do see a few questions, so allow me to answer a few first. If we were to scroll all the way to the top, I think there's this question that asks about, do you have a list of neighborhood schools that students entered, like Riverside Secondary, 13 students, Christchurch, 20 students, for example? Sorry, just a very quick one. He needs to share either stop. Okay, so yeah, so just to share, I think for we do have such data, but actually if you ask me, I think year on year it actually differs quite a bit also. But just to share with you, I think if you're interested to know, in our cluster of schools in the north area, I think your Riverside Secondary, indeed, Christchurch, Yishun Town, Evergreen Secondary, these are schools that are typically very popular amongst our children. Vicinity is definitely one of them. But I also wanted to highlight them that other than vicinity, do consider other things when you are having a discussions with the children. Look at the cutoff points, the PSLE range cutoff points for your children as well, because that really helps in terms of determining. So while there's no issues with us actually sharing data with parents to let you all see trend, how many students have been posted to the different schools, what is the choice, in terms of the choice of the schools at a different in our vicinity. But actually, because it does differ year on year, and it highly depends on, I think, your child himself or herself. Okay, but just to answer that question very broadly at this point in time, I don't have the data offhand, but indeed Riverside Secondary, Evergreen Secondary, Yishun Town Secondary, Not sure whether I missed out any other schools in the area that are really quite popular. Canberra Secondary as well, but not long. Yeah. So some of these schools you will notice in the north, near to us, they are quite popular. Yeah. But again, I hope to encourage parents, don't just go according to the popularity of the school. I think what is wiser is take a look at the cutoff points, right? Take a look at the cutoff point range, have that discussion with your child, take a look at the school's websites, have more information about that before you all make their school choice. Okay. Okay, I think there's a question after that about whether to bring tablets to school. Maybe I can just very quickly mention, but because it's not related to today's conversation, but our P3 classes are our one-to-one device classes. So by and large, we do encourage children to bring, because our ICT lessons, teachers do make use of the devices quite a bit in school. Okay, next question, SEC exam. Will they have a different exam paper based on subject group? Yes, if I understand your question correctly, indeed, depending on whether your child is taking G1, G2, or G3, the paper that's been taken is also different. All right. So if you think about it, what is happening today is let's say it's NT math, NA math, and then express math at a secondary level. Indeed, the paper that they take is different. So similarly, when it comes to the SEC, depends on whether the child is taking for G1, G2, or G3. The paper that they're taking for that subject is also different. All right, it will differ from one. Now, next one, is it MOE or the secondary school? I think this is in relation to just now a question about option band. So just to clarify a little bit, because I did see a few questions from parents about option band. Just now when we showed the scores, the option band is actually very similar to what we have today. If a child scores a particular number of points for AL, right? AL, let's say, I can't remember, is it AL 21, AL 21, 22, they will qualify for, today is, previously it would have been qualified for our express NA option band. Moving forward, they will qualify for the PG3 or PG2 groups, okay? So they will qualify for that, but ultimately, that is MOE's determination when it comes to whether they qualify for that option band. But ultimately, which school they can get into depends on the secondary school's cutoff. Okay, it depends on the secondary school's cutoff. So for example, if your child scored 21 and is part of either PG2 or PG3, you will still need to try and match it against the secondary school, right? Because some secondary schools, they maybe will do accept based on a number of applications for PG3, right? But then for other schools, they may only qualify for PG2. Okay, so that part depends on the cutoff of the school already. Okay, let me see, next question. Everyone, regardless G1 to G3, will take the same SEC. I think you meant SEC exam. It's the SEC certification. So in the past, we will say it's an O-level certification, N-level certification. But moving forward, there is no such thing as an O-level cert or or N-level cert. They'll be given a SEC, Singapore Education Cert, right? So Singapore Examination Cert. So this certification, inside the certification, I don't think we have had sight yet exactly how it will look like, but it will definitely indicate whether the subject is at G1, G2, or G3 level, and how did the child fare for the particular subject. Okay. Are the kids prepared for interviews? Is there a mock-up interview for them? We don't conduct mock interviews for our children, but I have already been working with the teachers to tell them that I think it is a must for us to really work with the children on interview skills. So first and foremost, the most basic is in their English lessons. How are they being prepared in terms of oracy, in terms of the way they answer questions? So you can think about how they're performing during their oral exams, right? And that is something which we want to build as that base. But of course, when it comes to interview skills, it's slightly different. I acknowledge that it's slightly different. And this is where we are telling our CCA teachers, to actually help the children, especially for those who then intend to apply for a DSA, to work with the children to actually open their eyes and their ears a little bit more to understand what kinds of questions might the school be asking for, so that children go back, do prepare for it a little bit. All right. And so do work with the CCA teachers. I think the CCA teachers, I've also given them the guidance to really help the children to understand. Interviews is not something that all of us are comfortable with. and we go through. So we understand that. So we do want to help the children in some way. Okay. A question about how about Admiralty Secondary School? I'm not sure is this question in relation to popularity of the school, probably. Yes, we do have children applying to Admiralty Secondary. Numbers wise, yes, it's on the slightly higher side, I think. But again, year to year, it differs. When I last saw the data, I remember Admiralty Secondary, year to year, it differs. Okay. Can you recommend popular school in Jurong? How could we schedule a feedback? For Chris, Mr. Chris, if you don't mind, could we get you to get in touch with us? Get in touch with our form teacher or our CCA teacher, possibly through the school, or you can write in to us so that we can get in touch with you with regard to your specific question. Can? Do get in touch with us so that we can help you with that. Okay, school choice rankings. Okay, I'm coming to the end of this. School choice rankings, do they matter for DSA? How do I say? It doesn't work in the same way that we look at school choice when it comes to PSLE. All right, because PSLE, we look at the scoring of the students. How did they fare in PSLE? But when it comes to DSA, I think it differs in the sense that you also have to understand what is it that the secondary school is looking for. Has the secondary school also expressed the interest in wanting to take your child? Right? Because if let's say the secondary school has somewhat also had, looking at your child, that the child has performed well, I think that is something that they will also take into account. But it needs to be taken into account vis-a-vis all the other students that have actually gone for the interviews, that have gone for the trials. Okay, so what happens with DSA, Mr. Shah, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that you can put down the choices, then the schools will actually make the offer. Right, they will also make an offer, and then the matching, a certain matching actually takes place after that. Mr. Shah, would you like to clarify on this point as well about choice of school for DSA?
Okay, I think for order of choice, it will only come into play once the offers comes in. So, for example, if you are given 2 offers, then in October you need to do a school preference submission. So it is up to you. If you have 2 schools offering your child DSA, you can choose to say, I want this particular school to be my first choice, and the next school can be my second choice. Then when they want to, then they will consider your choices also in terms of how they want to assign you the particular school that you want to go to. So I think that's the only thing that is they're having that order of choice coming into play. Yeah, only when they're offered.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Shah. Okay, let me see. There is a question about SEC exam. Okay, will there be a 5th year? Okay, I saw this question pop up a few times as well inside the answered section as well. Just to share, in terms of the 5th year, there is still an option of a 5th year, even with the SEC exam from 2027 onwards. But the criteria, MOE will probably be doing the criteria through the schools. By then, do have that conversation with the secondary school to see whether your child will meet the criteria for doing a 5th year in the secondary school. Okay, so there is an option of doing a 5th year in the secondary school, but provided that the child meets a certain criteria, and then there is that conversation that needs to be done with the secondary school to mention that you are interested, the child is interested to actually take a 5th year. What is the criteria for doing that? Because that is dependent on the secondary school as well. Okay, and there's some MOE criteria for the child to fulfill. Any certificates needed when we apply for DSA? No. So at this point in time, no certificates, no testimonials. That is unlike in the past because there wasn't a central portal for us to go in. Now there's a central portal for children to go in and apply. You just need to apply based on what is required inside the portal to answer the fields actually fill up the fields accordingly. Okay, so the question, 5th year, is it mandatory? No, it's not mandatory. As with now as well, it is not compulsory. It's actually dependent on the school, on the child, right? As well as whether you qualify for it if you have met the criteria. Okay, I think we answered that question just now already about school choice rankings. DSA, do the secondary schools look at P5, P6, WA results, child's conduct? This is definitely dependent on secondary schools. Secondary schools have got their own different things that they look at in general. But if you ask me, generally, yes, they want to look at all these things in totality to try and also understand that one, I mean, of course, when it comes to academics, is the child going to be still a good fit for the school when it comes to academics, or is it going to be a very big gap in terms of the cutoff points that they usually take in, as well as the child's current academic ability. That's for example. Child's conduct as well. And then, when it comes to holistic remarks, all these things are part and parcel of the entire process. But if you ask me, will there be one single factor that they look at? This really depends on the secondary school. I would like to think that secondary schools look at everything in totality. So in terms of the selection, in terms of putting them out for interviews, there are many different things that they will actually consider. Differs from school to school as well. Can the secondary school back out from taking the child should the PSLE result not meet the school expectations? Just to share, like what Mr. Shah mentioned just now, as long as the child fulfills the criteria based on PSLE, can enter via that posting group, the secondary school cannot back out. Okay, the secondary school cannot back out. Now, let me give you an example of when the DSA offer won't continue. Let's say I'm using an example of an IP school, an integrated program school. We know that our integrated program schools, because of the curriculum they offer, they don't have the different posting groups. Theirs is, in a sense, just posting group 3. Okay, so currently in the past, it would have been just the express stream, so to speak. If your child managed to get into one of the IP schools through DSA, given the place, and you all have already agreed to it, but should your child actually get a PSLE score that is outside of posting group 3, okay, that means that the child does not qualify do not qualify for the express stream, so to speak, then actually that is when the offer will lapse. Okay, that's when the offer will lapse, because your child has not met that minimum criteria to actually enter the posting group 3. And of course, over here, I think the concern is if the child is not able to get into posting group 3 from an academic standpoint, I think the child will find it very difficult to access the curriculum in integrated program. All right. Okay, couple of questions regarding the next one about CCA. I'll probably invite after joining. Okay, doesn't like the CCA after joining the secondary via DSA. Do they have an option to change? It is a requirement from MOE as well as a secondary school that should you be DSA into that secondary school, it is a commitment that the child has to make. Because after all, the secondary school has given a place to the child on that basis of the DSA, right? That CCA that you are going in. So be it, let's say, badminton or basketball, went in through that. So it's only fair to the school that a student fulfills the end of the bargain, so to speak. Of course, I would again recommend, I mean, this is something for parents as well as the child to have the conversation with the school. I think that if there are very good reasons why the student will not be able to fulfill the end of the bargain and to continue on with the CCA for very good reasons, I think it's something that the secondary school would like to listen to. But otherwise, by default, yes, they will have to fulfill that requirement, that is to continue on in the CCA in that secondary school. For child entering the secondary school through DSA, they will attend the exact same courses. Yes, that's right, correct. They will attend the same courses as students entering through PSLE. Again, it goes back to based on the subject, right? Is it G1, G2, or G3 that a child is going to be offered, and then they will be in the same classes as these students who are doing that subjects at that banding. Okay. When choose school, if inform parents to guide the students, or they choose themselves without informing parents. 6 choices for PSLE. We have been telling the children they must go back to inform the parents what are the 6 choices they intend to put down. All right, so we'd like to really encourage our parents to ask the children, right, make this decision together with the children. But of course, I think if your child is very clear about the 6 choices that he or she wants to make for very good reason, let's also give them that kind of autonomy. I think if they have already done their research, they're very clear about it. Also, trust the fact that I think in the class, our teachers have been also guiding the children. But do have that conversation with them. Okay, so just I think just one last thing which I wanted to highlight to parents again in case there was any confusion because of that case of option band, PG1 or 2, PG2 or 3. Can parents yourselves actually make a choice? Yes. All right. Parents yourselves, you can make a choice. But of course, subjected to a few things, subjected to the vacancy in the school that you are looking at, in the secondary school you're looking at, whether your child would qualify based on the cutoff point. All right. But in terms of the option band, let's say you decide with your child that instead of going for PG3, you prefer the child to do PG2 because it's less demanding, right? Less demanding in terms of the subjects, most of the subjects that he or she will be taking in secondary school. At the same time, because if let's say you were to choose PG2 instead of PG3, you are able to select a school of choice that is within that cutoff range. That means you have a school in sight, in mind already, and you want to go for that. I think definitely that is something that you can think about, right? Discuss that with your child. Okay, maybe I can take these two possibly as the last questions as we are coming to the end for today. During the 4 years of secondary school, the child can switch G1 to 3 based on child's choice or school's recommendation. Every secondary school will likely have their own criteria. There will be some criteria you need to meet in order for the child to be offered, say moving up from G1 to G2 or G2 to G3. If you meet those criteria, then I believe that's when the school will offer it to the child. But if you don't meet the criteria and you want to appeal for that, usually you will need to have that conversation with the school, with the secondary school. How can you get in touch with your child's form teacher to discuss more of the DSA, right? Okay, maybe if you don't mind leaving us with your child's name and class, we can get back to you. All right, with your name and class, we can definitely get back to you. Let's get in touch. Which secondary year the school will allow the change in the subject-based banding based on the result? Okay, this is from next year onwards. That means that our P6s this year, they will be impacted by full subject-based banding. So from next year, 2024 onwards, that is when all secondary schools will be doing full subject-based banding. Okay, there are a few exceptions in terms of secondary schools that are not doing FSBB. An example, Spectra. Okay, Spectra is secondary is because of the kind of curriculum that they have, they don't do our full subject-based banding. The Crest Secondary, this is another example of a school. All right. Can child enter SAP schools with higher Malay? Unfortunately not, because for SAP schools, they offer our Chinese, higher Chinese language. Now, but of course, if your child is interested in doing Chinese language or higher Chinese language in an SAP school, again, we go back to, if you recall earlier, we talked about what is the qualifying criteria for SAP schools, right? And I also give some examples of how some children actually don't even take higher Chinese language and they can still qualify to go into SAP schools. So there are students who don't take the Chinese language, so to speak, but then, students who don't take higher Chinese language, but they can still qualify for an SAP school. But in terms of wanting to go to the school to do higher Malay, that is not an option for SAP schools. There was an earlier question about what is SAP schools. So some examples of SAP schools in Singapore, actually, if we were to search online as well, you can get the information. They stand for the Special Assistance Plan schools. Some of these schools were all set up, as in this plan was set up back in the 1970s. Some examples: Anglican High School, Catholic High School, Chongqing High School, both main as well as Yishun. These are some of the schools that offer the higher Chinese language in these schools, and their curriculum is more skewed, geared towards deepening the children's appreciation and understanding of the Chinese language. Is it a must, black and white, for any injuries if he should to apply DSA via sports? Okay, if I understand your question correctly, you are asking if, let's say, your child has got any injuries in the past, do you need to declare to the secondary school that you are applying for via DSA? I unfortunately can't quite answer this question because I think it depends on the secondary school and their requirements. But I think if let's say your question is that because your child is injured at this point in time, want to apply but then won't be able to go through the trials, then may I suggest that you inform the secondary school about that, because of course it won't be during that period of time that, let's say, they are holding trials, it definitely won't be useful for the school if your child is injured and they won't be able to access from there. But you definitely need to let the secondary school know so that they can make a separate assessment of that. Okay. Okay, I think there is a question as well about whether a child being offered PG3, posting group 3, opt for posting group 2, as the child's results might not permit them to have a wider selection of schools in posting group 3. No, I don't think that this is allowed. So the moment that your child qualifies, that means 4 points to 20 points, okay, you don't have that option. The option band is only when you actually get either 21 or 22 points. In the past, is our NA Express option band. Then the parents can choose between NA, together with the students to look at the qualifying cutoff point for the school to choose between NA, Stream, and Express. So similarly, now moving forward, to choose between PG2 and PG3 is only if the child has got that, it falls within the option band. All right. So if your child doesn't fall within the option band, then you will have to apply based on the PG that the child is given to, that posting group. But again, I'd like to assure parents, because of the way full subject-based banding works, moving into secondary school from next year onwards, actually then you don't have to worry, because your child will be offered the subject, doing the subject based on the how well he or she has performed in PSLE, and then you will do whether it's G1, G2, or G3. Okay, Ken. Apologies, we have exceeded by a little bit. Thank you so much for your questions. I think we will stop here. The slides will be, as well as the recording, will be put up on our school website. Right. Thank you so much, parents. Thank you, and have a good evening.